Swung is it's a story about an oddball couple in their 30s who get involved in the swinging scene, which is couples having sex with couples, as a way to try to solve the personal problems that they have, which are on the one hand sexual. David, the male in the couple, is sexually impotent, but also he's professionally and socially inept or impotent as well. He's a divorced dad who's unemployed. In many ways, he's not sort of the embodiment of what a man should really be. Alice is also, she's a fish out of water. She's not from this country. She could leave at any time. You know, she has to have something to root her here. She's in love with David, but their relationship's not, it's not pulling together. They're failing to just be the most basic thing of all, which is a couple who have work, who have a house, and who can manage to have sex together. These things are not working for them. So an extraordinary and quite innovative solution to that is Alice notices that David can become aroused by thinking about or seeing other couples having sex. So from that, she thinks, well, hold on, this might be a solution to our problem or all of our problems. The only problem is when they get involved with the swinging scene, they are becoming more and more involved with other people and less involved with each other, and the tensions within their relationship start to really be brought to the fore to the point where they just completely explode and they can vanish off into different lives entirely. Well, I can be sometimes quite a cold writer, quite a dark writer. So it was important in filmic terms that I was actually working with a director who could warm up the material and who could find the compassion that's within it. I tend to, when I'm writing, I tend to really punish my characters quite a lot so that we feel compassion for them. In filmic terms, though, I think the compassion has to be there straight away. And Colin, I've always loved Colin's films because they've got this kind of really humane quality to them. And actually seeing some of the rushes for Swung, I was really touched by how real and how moving the connection is between Alice and David. I mean, they really seem like a couple who are actually in love. And that's something to do with the way that Colin interacts with actors, the way that he films them. It seems that he sort of steals these little precious moments that don't even seem acted at all. They just seem like real, genuine, subtle, emotional bits. There's all these lovely little moments that he's caught in the film, whether it's just, you know, a moment together while eating or in the toilet together or just a certain way of touching. Um, I find all that extremely moving, and I think that's a rare quality that Colin actually brings to the film, is this great um, way of being with human beings, this generosity and compassion that he has. Well, I was completely amazed and flattered and bowled over when I heard that we were casting Elena Anaya, because I've been a huge fan for for many years, and through the whole Almodovar thing and the European art house cinema, that was astounding. And then I was completely gobsmacked when Elisabeth McGovern also wanted to take part in the film, just because she's so absolutely what Dolly should be. She's got that level of buoyancy and sort of extreme camp, but she's got this kind of seriousness as well. She really, well, also, you know, she's a huge kind of coup for the film as well. She's an extraordinary actor. Owen, when I saw Owen on a tape with Elena, the dynamic that they had together was absolutely, it was just so real. They seemed immediately like a couple. And it's very, very hard, I think, for male actors to take on the challenge of playing an impotent man. You wouldn't think that that would be such, you know, a huge challenge. You know, people get Oscars for playing difficult parts, but I don't think many men want to be associated with sexual impotence, whether it's, you know, a, a character that they're playing or you know, it's the kind of thing that could stigmatize you for life, possibly. But Owen was very brave in taking that on, and I think he saw the internal struggle of David was just much more than the purely sexual. It was a struggle for a man trying to find sense and a sense of purpose and commitment in his own life. There's a line in the book which is that David was impotent in so many ways, meaning just that he'd failed to rise, if you like, to the challenge of being a father, of being someone with a job, and a future. So it's a really challenging part for Owen to take on, a guy who's ostensibly a failure across the board. So there was a visual motif that ran through the film, which was that Alice and David start off looking at other couples through windows, through in a slightly voyeuristic way. They're almost taking the mickey out of other couples. They're like, oh, imagine if we were like them. Then gradually, as they become more involved in swinging, they're becoming more. It's like they step through the window, if you like. They make the decision to be in the same space as, and throughout the story, it's all a series of doors, corridors, windows of going deeper and deeper until they finally make it into the space where individuality no longer exists, which is the space called the Black Room. The sacred heart of every swinging community is a Black Room, which is basically a space where 20, 30 people are completely naked and don't know who each other are as they lick and suck and fuck each other and stroke or massage or whatever they do. You become body parts, really. Your sense of identity vanishes completely. Yeah, there's a symbolism in the script which Colin picked up on beautifully in the actual shooting of the film, to do with rooms. Rooms are windows onto other people's lives, and this kind of accumulates as Alice and David become more involved with the swinging scene. So ultimately, the place where they end up, a place which is not actually in the original book, um, is a long corridor lined with rooms in which there are different sexual acts happening within each. Alice and David individually could end up in different rooms. They could have different lives. They're like portals, if you like, to different sexual activities, but also different outcomes for the story. And at the end, the most feared point within that, it's the epicenter of the swinging scene, which is a black room, a thing called a black room. Um, and within the black room, um, you you basically disrobe completely, and you also remove your own identity. You are anonymous within a black room, and you will have sex with people who are anonymous, sex or touch or maybe non-penetrative. You may be a swarm of bodies all on top of each other. It's a place where just who you are no longer matters, and that's, in narrative terms, that's where Alice and David could end up together or apart, with a complete erasure of who one of them or both of them actually are. So it's like the threat that waits for them. It's something that Dolly in the story talks about. She sees it as a kind of utopian thing, a kind of hippie loss of self in the sort of Buddhisty sort of sense, or the tantric sense. But for Alice and David to lose themselves in that way would be catastrophic, and they would definitely lose each other. So there's a sort of centrifugal drive towards the black room as the end of the story, and whether they'll survive the encounter with the gravity of that big black space. Going down the graphic route is certainly something that's been done by people like Lars von Trier. Nymphomaniac came out just the year before this film was finished. Um, I think that the way that the story's told through sexuality, it's all about the sort of emotional nuances of sexuality. What's it like to be in a room with another couple who are having sex? What's it like to watch them? It's arousing for Alice and David, but what's it like when Alice is then invited to cross the threshold and actually take part? There's this beautiful moment with Alice and David when they're trying to decide whether Alice should accept the invitation or not. And the way that Colin's filmed that, it's all on their faces. We're not watching the slurping and puffing and panting that's going on behind them. It's just a beautiful moment of the eye to eye, shall I, would you like me to, that emotional question that a couple are going through, very fraught. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. There's one of my favorite scenes in the whole film is Alice telling David a story, an erotic story about what she's just seen the neighbours do next door. She tells them that they've been having sex next door at the end of a party. And it's beautifully filmed and just this sustained shot, and the love of the characters, the way that they love and relate to each other is absolutely palpable. And it's filmed with such an incredible kind of quiet, whispering um, sincerity and compassion. It's not like, wham bam, thank you man. Um, f- Filmmaking that a film like this really could have been. It could have been over the top, sort of exploitative, pornographic, but Colin's turned it into a really compassionate, generous, and humane film, I think.